let's have a look at 2018 now, because the political turbulence, obviously, in EM could actually mean it's actually risk on as the year draws to a close. This one, of course, just when it did seem the rand, for example, couldn't get any more volatile. South Africa's ruling ANC is embroiled in a bitter campaign to succeed President Zuma. And when you look across the Atlantic and you look at, for example, the Chilean peso, there could be set for a ride after former President Sebastián Piñera swept back into office. Chris Anstey, he's our Cross Assets managing editor. He's with us right now. And Chris, we got to start with Chile. What does this victory mean, Piñera's mean? What does that mean for the EM trade?
Morning, David. So it looks like there's been a resounding victory for Mr. Piñera, a business-friendly candidate, a billionaire who previously ran the country, in fact, and has won on a platform that includes tax cuts. He's seen as being the candidate who is going to help boost economic growth, and indeed we may see the Chilean peso rise and the stock market there rise when they open on Monday. They've been rallying recently on optimism that the candidate Piñera would win. However, I was just taking a look, David, at the Chilean peso this year, and what you'll notice on the Bloomberg is that it has a very close correlation with the price of copper. So it's not clear to me that the political scene here will be the dominant factor for Chilean markets. The copper price, copper makes up a dominant share of Chilean exports, has been doing very well this year with steady growth in China. So really looking at the outlook for 2018, it might be more useful to look at Chinese growth forecasts and projections for the Chinese construction industry and therefore its needs for Chilean copper than the business-friendly candidate. But certainly you could say that a potential headwind for Chilean markets has been removed by the win by Mr. Piñera in the presidential election over the weekend.
Right, so that's roughly over. But when you look at, for example, South Africa, with the ANC there set to select the successor to President Zuma, I'm looking at overnight implied vol here on the rand, Chris. It's jumping the most since, I believe, the crisis. What are investors looking for in that vote that takes place later today?
Yes, certainly relative to Chile, the political situation in South Africa is a big issue for investors. And as you say, the volatility in the South African rand and the stock market this year has really been closely tied to the political situation. So we've got a very close race here, and most experts really aren't sure how this leadership election is going to pan out for the ruling ANC. So they've got, again, a perceived business-friendly candidate in the form of Cyril Ramaphosa, one of the luminaries of the anti-apartheid battles back from the 80s. He has been a prominent investor. He's been a prominent businessman in recent years, and he is seen as the steadier hand at the helm of state if he wins. Now, the other candidate, former spouse of the outgoing president, Jacob Zuma, has been associated with some of the corruption scandals that have tainted President Zuma's administration, and she is not regarded as being as business friendly, being someone who would be more looking towards policies that focus on distribution of wealth rather than creation of wealth. So she's very much seen as not necessarily business friendly. We've seen just even this morning, the rand has been rising 1.5%, down 1.5%. It's going to be a wild ride, regardless of which way this leadership election pans out.